This episode of Get Outta Here, the AP Travel Podcast, is sponsored by Carnival Corporation, the world's largest cruise company with 10 of the world's leading brands, including Carnival Cruise Line, Cunard, Holland America Line, Princess Cruises, and Seabourn. To learn about the world's leading cruise lines from Carnival Corporation and great vacation options, contact your travel professional or visit worldsleadingcruiselines.com.
It's Get Outta Here. I'm Warren Levinson. It's midsummer in the Northern Hemisphere. Time for beach trips, water sports, hikes in the mountains, warm weather pursuits. But what if you're a ski resort with a lot invested in lift and trail infrastructure, to say nothing of all that hotel and nightlife space? Time was when ski operators generally left the summer over to planning and maintenance, but that makes less and less economic sense, especially when the mountaintop views are just as good, maybe even better in the summer, especially in a warming and drying climate, where the ski season is more and more uncertain. And ski resorts from Aspen to Stratton are embracing summer with activities from trail rides to music and art festivals. Associated Press writer John Marshall has taken a look at what ski resorts are up to in what is commonly referred to as the off-season, and he joins us with a report. John Marshall, summertime, ski resorts. Do we have any idea when the first ski operator looked around and said, we have all these sunk costs, we've built all this infrastructure, it doesn't do us any good unless there's snow on the ground. Can we find a way to draw people in during the summer months?
Yeah, I think it's been going on for quite a while, just a handful of places here and there, but I think it's really picked up in like the last 5 years maybe, where the ski resorts are looking around and instead of being closed all summer, they can make a little money and offering different activities. Because I was looking some stuff up, and I mean there are just tons of resorts that are opening like zipline courses and building mountain coasters and all these things to draw people to the ski resorts during the summer.
Who's got good stuff?
I know Breckenridge is really good. We were there 6 or 7 years ago, and they have this really cool mountain coaster where it's most of them are usually gravity based, and it's just a little car that sits on this like these wooden stilts, and it takes you up to the top, and then it just drops you, and you follow the terrain and through the trees, and you're going really fast. And we took the lift to the top, and you get really great views. And a lot of resorts sometimes they'll have like you can go up there and get lunch, or you can do a sunset thing at the top of the mountain. So I know Breckenridge was really cool.
And that's a car on a track.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it looks almost like one of those roller coasters, like the kid version at the state fair, but it's a little bit bigger and a little faster, and it kind of tows you up to the top, and then it releases you, and you just go.
Wow. And what kind of traveler do these places attract? Is it the skier looking for something to do in the summer and looking for some way to go downhill fast in a different way?
Yeah, I think there's some of that. And I think people who want to get into the outdoors, that's kind of their target audience, people with kids, because there's things like the coasters, or some have slides. Some even have like rock walls. Even though you're in the mountains, they'll have a rock wall where the kids can climb. And I mean, the outdoor people, obviously, you can hike through there. And there's some places, some of the resorts offer a way to get bikes up to the top, so people will do some downhill mountain biking and things like that. And there are people that'll hike up the mountain, then back down the mountain using the trails, the ski trails.
It's sort of odd to imagine a rock wall out in the middle of outdoors, but I guess kids are used to climbing them in gyms, so why the heck not?
Yeah, I mean, actually, you'd feel like you were doing actual rock climbing because you're in the outdoors, but it does. I guess it's safer, and it attracts the kids, I guess.
I know with mountain bikes, I can think of an eastern resort, Seven Springs in western Pennsylvania, where they don't, to my recollection, they do not carry your bike up for you on the trail, but they find a kind of way to go round to make it at least potentially doable to get to the top of some of those hills, and then you sort of release you to do downhill mountain biking. So there must be some places that will do that.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work to me, but I'm sure they have like graded slopes where it's a little easier to get up there. There was a real cool one in Whistler, in British Columbia. We were there 2 years ago during the summer. It was a golf thing, but they have this really cool mountain bike. I don't know if it's a course, and it's got multiple options. So there were kids coming down with their parents, but there were also people that were just ripping down the mountain really fast. And they had I don't remember, I think they were using the lift to take people up, but it was an actual course. They had built multiple tracks on this course, and kind of like a ski resort where you could pick, like, say, a Black Diamond if you really wanted to go down and hit it hard, or you could hit the green one and come down with your kids and take it real slow.
Have any of the resorts that you have come in contact with found a way to stay active enough in the summer that it comes anywhere near what they're taking in terms of business, in terms of money, compared with what they do in the winter?
Not from what I've seen. I mean, just the sheer masses of people that come up and go skiing. Like, I lived in Colorado, and even here in Arizona, a lot of people going skiing, and the cost of a lift ticket is going to be more than if you take the lift during the summer. Like, you want to pay to ride the lift during the summer. There's not going to be as many people, and the cost is going to be cheaper. And then you got people renting skis and renting boots and all that stuff. So I don't think it's even close.
Right. There's just not the stuff that goes around with it, and there's not a lot of clothes to keep you warm, so there's just not as much stuff to sell.
Yeah, no doubt.
How about the zip line rides? Who's got them, and what are they like?
Yeah, it seems like everybody has one now. I grew up in Northern California and was driving up, I think it's last summer. There's one right along the road. It was one of I don't remember which ski resort it was. But yeah, you can just driving up Highway 80, I think it was, and you can see people doing the zip lines. And it seems like when I was in Colorado a couple of years ago, pretty much it seemed like every one of them had a zip line course, and some pretty elaborate ones too. It's not like you get on and go from one tree to the next tree. They've got these multi-station zip lines where you go from one, I don't know, pillar or whatever it is to another, and then you clip on and you can go in different directions, and it's an entire course, which looked really cool. I didn't do it, but it looked really cool.
Now, with zip lines or something like that, can some of this stuff coexist with ski stuff in the winter, or does it all just have to go away?
Yeah, I haven't seen it coexisting. I don't even know if you can do it. You could probably do a zip line in the winter, but I think people going up there are going to go and skiing. It's not something that I've seen.
So let's talk about climate change for a minute. How is that affecting these resorts?
In the West, there's been drought, so the ski season has been shorter. So there's obviously going to be less ski traffic. They're going to make less money, and to be able to expand the resorts to offer different things that don't have to have snow and can be done somewhat year-round. I think it has an impact that way.
Now, a lot of resorts obviously have stuff that goes way beyond skiing in terms of restaurants, in terms of nightlife, etc. Does this stuff get to flourish in the summertime?
Yeah, I've seen some, like at the bottom of the mountain, most places I've been to, all those places stay open, especially now that they're offering things that people can do during the summer. I've seen a few resorts where the restaurant or the stop-off place at the top of the mountain will be open for a certain amount of time, so that the people that go up and take the lift just to hike down or to be there in the summer or to go up there for sunset will be open for a certain amount of time, just to accommodate some of the people that are coming up there.
What about the relationship between hiking and skiing? I mean, I could see for the alpine skier, I'm not so sure. For the Nordic skier, the cross-country skier, I could easily see a Nordic skier being a hiker in the off-ski season. Is that true for alpine skiers as well?
Yeah, I think so. I've seen, when I lived in Colorado, you get people that live there year round or come up there from Denver or the Western Slope, and it's the same. I think it's the same kind of mentality. They want to be in the outdoors, and when the weather switches, they go from their skiing or their snowboarding to like hiking and like fishing, and they just kind of switch gears. Because I've seen people in summertime in like Aspen that they'll get their ski poles, and I think they're a variation of ski poles. They're more like hiking poles, and they'll just walk straight up the side of the mountain. They won't even take the trails. I remember being on a lift. We were going up to the top of the mountain, and I looked down, and there were several people just like beelining straight up the side of the mountain with their ski poles.
Oh, wow. So have you ever been in a resort where you look at it in one season or the other, or either in the summer and say, man, this is good, but this is really great when it's snow covered, or the other way around, that you're in a ski resort in winter and thinking, yeah, it's nice, but man, summertime, this place really just, everything blooms and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, I've never looked at it really that way. I kind of enjoy it the way it is, but that when I lived in Colorado, the ski resorts in the summer were really cool because everything gets super green and everything blooms because the season's so short up there, and everything really pops. And then, I mean, wintertime, it's obviously deep powdery snow, and the trees are all covered in snow. So I'm one of those people that kind of enjoys it as it is and not looking forward to the snow or not looking forward to the summer.
Uh-huh. I mean, I learned to ski in the East and mostly have skied in the East, and that means the snow is not quite as deep. There's more ice. I skied once at Snowbird in Utah and remember thinking, this would be great, except all this snow. I don't know about that.
Yeah, we used to. I grew up in Northern California, and there'd be decent snow at times, but you'd get that really hard, icy, hard to turn snow. And then we got to Colorado, and it's like fresh snow there, and you're just like, you're just blown away because it's like skiing in like frozen flour or something. It's so light and so airy. It was completely different than what I was used to.
Right, exactly, and not noisy at all.
Yeah, not that scraping sound as you're going down the mountain.
Exactly. All right, what else is in the story that we're missing here that we have to talk about?
Some of the resorts have like these giant slides where kids can go down. I guess you don't have to be a kid. We mentioned the mountain coasters. I've noticed an uptick in resorts that are adding these coasters, and they're really cool the way they go through the trees. And some of them, I mean, one of them I saw gets up to like 28 miles an hour, which if you're in a little car, that seems like it's pretty fast. In Park City, where they had the Olympics, what was early 2000? Was that 2000?
2002.
Yeah, you can actually go on the old bobsled run during the summer. You don't have to do it during the winter. Some resorts will have yoga on the mountain. You can take the lift up, and they'll do yoga, like a sunset or sunrise yoga at the top of the mountain. Some of these resorts even have like movie nights where they have screenings, and they'll put up a screen and everybody can bring their blankets. Frisbee golf. Some I've seen. I don't remember. Copper Mountain somewhere in Colorado has its own little frisbee golf course. There's, in addition to zip lines, they'll build these obstacle courses where you're climbing ladders and crossing ropes and going over various things while you're up in the air. And the same thing with a ropes course. It's kind of similar to a ropes course where you're tied in and you're taking a rope across a giant drop off or whatever from tree to tree or something like that. Some places have like bungee trampolines, which I guess you can get that anywhere. You don't have to go to a ski resort.
Right. Well, great. John Marshall, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
All right, thanks.
Covering college basketball for the AP keeps Phoenix-based John Marshall busy most of the ski season. He's been taking a look at what the ski resorts are up to in the summer. After a break, my favorite trip, a drive across Europe and Asia in a ridiculously small car.
Download the AP News app for the latest in news, sports, travel, entertainment, and more. Available now for iPhone and iPad.
It's Get Out of Here. I'm Warren Levinson. And now, my favorite trip.
In from the back door of the ballroom walked a performer dressed in really bad drag. He was wearing red stockings and a plaid dress that looked like it came from the Salvation Army, sunglasses, a red feather boa, and greatly exaggerated poofy breasts. My brother turned to Diana. "What the hell?" he asked. No, she shrugged as if this was totally expected. "It's a lady boy."
I have not met you, but I am willing to bet money that you have never been to a Kazakh wedding. Or if you have, that you've never been to one in Kazakhstan. Or if you have, that you've never been to one to which you were invited by a complete stranger you just met while driving through the country on the way somewhere else. The Wild Wedding Party is just one of many adventures our friend, the radio producer and podcaster Scott Gurian, relates in his show, Far From Home. The first season covers the trip he made with his brother Drew in the Mongol Rally, a mad jaunt across Europe and Asia from the UK to Mongolia. The event was established in 2004. The main rules: to take part, you have to raise money for charity, and you have to make the trip in a ridiculously underpowered car.
My brother and I, a few years ago, we got in the habit of taking a big trip every year over Christmas and New Year's. We didn't have a lot of family left in the area. We didn't really have anything to do over the holidays, and we figured rather than just sit home and make dinner for ourselves, we might as well go somewhere interesting. So one year we went to Thailand and Cambodia. We went to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands. And another year we went to Cuba. And while we were in Cuba, we were in a tour group, and we met this woman, Rosie, and her husband, Alan. They were both from Australia. And Rosie was, a few decades older than either of us, but she was very adventurous, and we kept in touch. We kind of had some issues with the tour group. Our guide got drunk and abandoned us one evening, and so we all kind of bonded in the tour group, and we kept in touch. And then a few months later, Rosie reached out to my brother and me on Facebook, and she said, "Hey, I'm planning this crazy ridiculous journey. I'm going with my best friend Jane, and we're going to drive in a little tiny car from London all the way to Mongolia as part of an annual event raising money for charity called the Mongol Rally." And she asked, "Would you like to join us?" And it didn't take long. We decided pretty quickly that it sounded like a once-in-a-lifetime event, and so we were in.
Having done it, having survived it, once-in-a-lifetime event, can you imagine anything matching it?
It would be hard, but I think both my brother and me are very adventurous, and I wouldn't rule out doing something sort of like this again in the future, with several caveats. One of the rules of this event that we went on were that we had to take a ridiculously tiny car that wasn't really suited for the journey. And we had a lot of car trouble along the way. Basically, everything mechanically that could have gone wrong did go wrong, which on the one hand, it made it more of an adventure. But after the third or fourth breakdown sitting in another garage, we kind of just wanted to be back on the road and stop wasting all this time and money on car repairs. So if I did another journey like this, I would definitely like to take a better car, and I would also like to travel at a slower pace to really be able to see more of the places that we went to in depth, because it was over the course of 7 weeks. We went to 18 countries, so it was a lot of driving pretty much every day.
In those countries, the countries that you went through a lot of places that Americans would be afraid to go to. Would that be a fair description of some of them?
I think definitely. Yeah, we drove southeast across Europe and then into Turkey, which it was just kind of bad timing. It happened. This is in the summer of 2016.
This is right around coup time.
Yeah, it was. We ended up at the border to enter Turkey 6 days after an attempted coup in Turkey. So we did a lot of kind of scrambling around at the last minute to figure out, should we go a different way? Can we go a different way with our visas? In the end, we decided to go ahead after speaking to some friends of friends who were on the ground in Turkey, and they said they thought it would be okay, and it was. It ended up being totally fine. Just to be extra cautious, we purposely avoided Istanbul and Ankara and just kind of drove straight through a lot of the country. And then after Turkey, we went through a lot of Central Asia, all the stands, and including Iran as well, which is a place that most Americans would never imagine going. And if you're an American, a Brit, or a Canadian, in order to go to Iran, you have to hire a tour guide in order to get a visa. But it wasn't like a government minder. It was just a tour guide. He was a nice guy. And I have to say, of all the countries I've been to everywhere in the world, Iran was the place that I was treated with the warmest welcome. Just this sense of Persian hospitality of people there. You talk to them, complete strangers, for 5-10 minutes, and suddenly they're inviting you to come to their house, come for tea, come for dinner, meet their families. It was just such a warm welcome, unlike anywhere I've been. It was really an incredible experience.
Surprise?
It was, I don't know if I had many. I had heard this about Iran going in. And I've experienced warmth in other places in the past, including in Cuba. People were very friendly, and they had a lot of questions for us as Americans. But Iran, even more than Cuba, just this curiosity, because there's very few Americans that go there. So they had so many questions for us. There was so much that they wanted to know, and they wanted to practice their English. And they were just really excited to see us.
Okay, among the souvenirs you came out with on this trip is a CD of music. How did you come to acquire that?
So this was early on in our trip. Driving across Western Europe was, of course, really nice and easy. But it was when we entered Romania that it felt like the real adventure kind of began. At a certain point, the highway just kind of ended, and we were diverted off onto this side road. It kind of looked like they had run out of money to build the highway. And we started driving on this side road past these women in babushkas carrying bundles of carrots. It kind of felt like we'd entered the old world. And then we stopped at a gas station to fill up, and a few minutes later, my brother returned with some souvenirs.
Yes! Oh, this is just what we needed. You could ask for more stereotypical.
In the end, in Mongolia itself, you had to be rescued.
Yes.
So explain that, and when you look back on it now, what do you think about it? Do you see it as, okay, in the end this was a major failure of our trip, or we are so grateful that the authorities were there to help us, or what?
Well, the thing you need to know about Mongolia is, first of all, it's an enormous country. People don't realize how big it is. And if you look on a map of the country of Mongolia, you see these lines going across from east to west of the country. And as an American, you would assume, there must be highways, or at least like paved roads, major roads. These are the main east-west routes across the country. When you get there, they're mostly unpaved. It's just like dirt tracks through the sand or through the grass. No signs whatsoever, not even signs in Mongolian or Russian, like no signs whatsoever. Very hard to figure out your way. GPS was of very little use in Mongolia. Oftentimes we would see one line on the map, but in reality the trail would split 3 different ways, and we'd have no way, of knowing which way to go. And then there were river crossings. There were these shallow little streams that we'd have to drive across, which our car, of course, isn't capable of going in very deep water. So this one particular day we were driving, and we got caught in this one river crossing, and then we saw another one coming up ahead. And we decided, okay, we really don't want to have to go through that again. So doing the best we could to kind of figure out from a satellite map and GPS and our paper maps, trying to compare the 3, we figured, okay, well, let's go. We see this other track that kind of goes off to the right. Let's go that way instead. It looks like it kind of goes parallel to the main road, and we could rejoin the main road a few miles down, which is all well and good if you're on flat terrain, but this was pretty hilly where we were and very remote. Mongolia has the lowest population density of any country and on the planet. And so we went up a few hills. We somehow, our little cars have very little horsepower. That was the other thing. I said these cars had to be kind of ill-equipped for the journey. That was one of the rules of the event. And our car had very little, power, and it wasn't good at making it up these steep hills. So we went up. We somehow managed to make it up a few hills. At a certain point, we knew that there was no way of turning back. We just wouldn't be able to make it back up where we came. So we had to keep going. In the end, we ended up at the bottom of this kind of rocky ravine, this sort of canyon, and we just could not either make it back the way we came or up to the other side, and we were totally stranded. And so thankfully, we had this satellite device where we were able to send a text to a friend back in the UK, who in turn got in touch with the British and American embassies in Mongolia, and they were able to send out a rescue crew to come get us from the Mongolian National Emergency Management Agency. And they finally showed up late at night and finally got us out, refused to take any payment at all. Very nice people, even though they spoke very little English. A few months later, the American embassy emailed us a photo of the American ambassador to Mongolia presenting a certificate of appreciation to the head of the Mongolian National Emergency Management Agency. Apparently, we had made history because we were the first Americans that they had ever rescued in that situation. Not a good distinction to have, I suppose.
Not,
No.
but they're very proud of what they've done.
They were.
It can't be all bad.
Yeah. It was kind of scary being out stranded in the middle of nowhere, not knowing what was going to happen. But looking back on it now, it just left us with this incredible story. And it's great to kind of have these adventures to tell people about. If you're in any social setting, you're certainly the one that everyone wants to hear the stories from. And I have this, I documented the whole experience for my podcast, and so I'm hoping to have more of these adventures and share them with other people.
Great. So where do you want to go back to? Of what you saw, what you saw so fleetingly, what would you like to, if you had a chance to spend a few weeks just going to a place that you'd been to?
There's so many places because the pace of this drive was so quick that there were so many places that we got just a brief taste of that I really would like to explore some more. Again, because of the situation in Turkey, we just kind of drove through. We did get to see Cappadocia in southeast Turkey, which is really amazing. These ancient caves that people still live in, and they have hot air balloons at lunch early every morning. But we didn't get to see Istanbul or Ankara, so I would definitely like to go back to Turkey. Iran, I thought, was very fascinating, though maybe right at this moment might not be the best time to go. And Dushanbe, Tajikistan, was a beautiful city. It's not a city on most people's radar, but very, very leafy and green, and it just seemed like an interesting place. I'd like to explore that some more. As well as so when we got all the way to the end, my brother and our friends flew home, and I actually decided I wanted to keep going and finding more stories for my podcast. So I actually drove all the way back, believe it or not the same route we came, but a northern route across Siberia, and then went into Ukraine, where I got to explore Chernobyl, which is the eeriest, most amazing place I've ever been. And I really liked Ukraine. I'd like to spend some more time in Ukraine.
Radio producer Scott Gurian. You have to hear his award-winning podcast, Far From Home. It's available on iTunes, Overcast, all the platforms you hear us. And that's the show. Get Out of Here is produced by the Associated Press under the supervision of Nikessa Moody and Peter Costanzo. I'm Warren Levinson. We'll see you next time.
This episode of Get Outta Here, the AP Travel Podcast, was sponsored by Carnival Corporation, the world's largest cruise company with 10 of the world's leading brands, including Carnival Cruise Line, Cunard, Holland America Line, Princess Cruises, and Seabourn. To learn about the world's leading cruise lines from Carnival Corporation and great vacation options,